Where was your first deployment?
So, 2018, we went to Jabber in Kuwait, and we were mainly doing that was kind of like right at the end of the ISIS, like right before the last like push to take out ISIS, but like right in the middle time, like of hey, everything's starting to wind down. Like we think we've got this under control, and it was a lot of the stuff like right after the Syrian civil war. So as Russia's moving into that AOR, there was a lot of dynamics going on there for sure. But that was the first one.
I'm trying to think too, 2018 time frame, because I was there 14, 15, not at Jabber, right, but flying the same AO for the most part. Were you guys seeing the Russians? So did they bring in the Su-57? They brought the Su-35s when we were there, which was kind of spicy and at least gained some awareness. But we had Big Brother Raptor that was hanging out. Were you guys still operating a lot in Syria and Iraq?
Yeah, I mean that's mainly we did the most in Syria. Like we really didn't do a ton in Iraq. It was kind of the tri-border region between Syria, Jordan, and Iraq. There was you know a lot of stuff going on there, and really you kind of learn the history behind why you're doing some of this because that's what a lot of guys are like, oh, I don't even know like why we're here, like why do we care about this? And outside of ISIS, and it's like Syria had just gone through like a pretty, I would say a pretty horrific civil war where there's definitely a lot of like um, horrible things happening. Like that's what was eye opening as a relatively young fighter pilot. I think I just upgraded to flight lead before we left. And so it was like, man, I still don't know a lot, but like I'm going to lead someone else in combat. And you get over there into that environment, and you're like, dude, this is horrible. Like what is going on, relatively speaking, within the world that most Americans have no clue. Um, one of the missions we had was just to basically cap in this region to protect like this refugee camp of 2 million people that had nowhere to go. And it's like you're looking down like at down at the ground, and you're like, dude, what in the world is going on, man? At least I can be a part to help, but like, still, what in the world is happening?
It's kind of wild. And you think, I showed up in 2014 there, but ISIS was all over the news. So people were aware, but it's not funny, but it quickly drops off the radar and people are focused about, whatever else, gas prices, etc. But in 2018, 4 years later, still to this day, like horrific things are happening and you don't hear about it. Vice News actually did a pretty good documentary, and it might have been I saw about 3 months ago. And the reporter, she was going through some of these refugee camps and this year, and obviously the conditions in those refugee camps are just abysmal. So if I find myself complaining, I can quickly shut myself up. The problem that is there and has always been there and it's going to be there. This reporter, she's Muslim, she's going through and she's interviewing people. The problem in that camp they had were women teaching and indoctrinating young kids into the ISIS ideology, pursuing a path of, going out there and killing the infidels. But this reporter at the end of it, it closes out and she's maybe like 15, 20 feet away from this group, 8 to 12-year-old boys. And she's asking them questions. So they're shouting kind of back and forth. And, she asked like, would you kill me? And they said, absolutely. Like that's their objective, is to kill her and everyone else that she associates with. And it's kind of scary, but that stuff that is going on. The world is obviously not a very happy place, and there's a lot of dynamics going on out there. So it's wild. It's wild to be flying over that.
Yeah, I mean, it was shocking, man. I don't know how many. I don't know what your first like experience was like going into that like part of the world, but I would say it was most shocking for me. It's kind of a funny story. So like I'm part of the AOS. We're flying. We stop in lodges for a night. We take off out of lodges at like 2 a.m, which could have been like the scariest thing I've ever done in life, because there was like no stars and it's like complete black, like sea. And so you feel like you're flying into like space. It's like, dude, I have no clue where I'm at. Like, I hope I don't just like, I hope this works out. I need to maintain this radar lock, and I hope the sun comes up quick. So we get over the med, and our like third tanker drops out. They're like, oh man, like we're trying to get out of Athens, and like we're hard broke, like surprise, right? Yeah. And so the cell lead, Razor Pira, I don't know if you know him, but he's like, all right, boys. He's like, Croc, you start running numbers on gas. Make sure we got enough gas to get to, our missed refueling base. He's like, but it's going to come down to either Suda Bay or Sigonella. So let's start talking. Who wants to go to Italy? Who wants to go to Greece? And dude, we all had the expectation that we were going to be landing in like the middle of the desert and like going to like some horrible, like, little like, trailer to live or sleep that night. And now we're making this really tactical decision of Italy or Greece. There's a lot of consternation, dude, but we basically decide we're going to Suda Bay because it was the European spring break, which was really the driving factor.
Problem solved.
It's
good essay on that time.
Yeah, exactly. And so we land and we call back to the squadron commander, and dude, great gun story too. Like, he's the weapons officer leading the squadron into like this deployment. So they've been ADVON. They've been there for like 3 weeks, and it was like they're basically like Sandstorm season. So like they were sending pictures out on these group chats of like these horrific sandstorms, dude. Like you couldn't even drive. And we call back and we're like, oh man, like we missed our tanker. And sure enough, like the youngest dude in the squadron posts on the same chat where everyone's like complaining about how horrible it is, this picture of like the beach. and dude, we ended up being there for like 6 to 9 days because they couldn't find another tanker. So then the cell takes off to finally join the fight, and my fuel gauge doesn't work as we're starting up. And so it was like a food fight between like two of the more senior dudes who's staying back like with Croc. And sure enough, it was Nasty Beckham. He's like, he wins the little like Rochambeau. And so we stayed like in Suda Bay for like a whole nother like 10 days. It was insane, man. Dude. It was like the first like half of my deployment was there. Not realistically, but it was a while. So we take off. I had gotten used to beach life by then, man. Like we were loving life.
Yeah.
And the rest of the squadron's just, like hating everything that's happening. And so we finally take off out of Suda Bay, man. And I'll never forget it, man. We're holding 50 miles north of the base as one of these epic sandstorms are coming through. We're holding like basically in IFR conditions for sand. And I remember asking like Nasty, I'm like, dude, what is happening? And he's like, our lives just got 100% worse, dude. And like you're looking out and like as a dude who'd never been in that part of the world, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is horrible.